So let's see about these messages in your brain.
However, lest the waves exceed minimal safe exposure limits. The effect has largely remained a curio, though the U.S. military has certainly looked into possible applications. According to Wired magazine, the term telepathic ray gun came up in a 1998 U.S. Army study, while the U.S. Navy researched the technology in 2003. Journalist David Hambling reported on the issue for both Wired and New Scientist back in 2008, interviewing Lev Sadovnik, who worked on the Medusa, that's mob excess deterrent using silent audio device for the Navy. Sadovnik stated that the technology was effective, but it carried with it the risk of brain damage due to high intensity shock waves generated in the skull by the microwave pulse. At worst, Hambling reported, such technology could constitute a brain-killing death ray. But it could also see use as a bird deterrent or a subliminal advertising transmitter. And so V2K technology is very possible, and the possible applications are certainly disconcerting. But here's the bottom line. You are not at the center of some black ops psychic experiment. You are not a targeted individual, as darkly seductive as that explanation may seem. If you're hearing voices or unexplained sounds in your head, go see a doctor. It's a symptom of medical illness. So what about you? Have you ever heard unexplained sounds or voices in your head?
Right. You're totally a nut job. Just like anyone saying that there's a conspiracy about King Charles III. And, you know, there aren't any power players and Bush is a great Republican and raw, all hail the GOP. Well, let me end today with a little bit of politics. Okay. Just so that you guys know, I'm going to take you back in time to an article that I wrote a long time ago. Let's just pull that one up first. Now I'm going to show you how shit works and how corrupt individuals are creatures of habit. So there was an article that I wrote that's quite important right now. This was actually written for Time right now. And it says Mueller and Bush funded the 9/11 attack. So weird, right? But here's where the important is. October 20th, 1942, Union Bank Corp in New York City found to be a Nazi shell company. Prescott Bush was director of Union Bank Corp. Shareholders were Bush, Harriman, and 3 Nazi officers. October 28th, 1942, Roosevelt seized 2 companies as fronts for the Third Reich. Bush Harriman Bank, subsidiary of Union Bank Corp. Seamless Steel, owned and operated by Bush Harriman Bank. November 8th, 1942. Roosevelt seized Nazi-controlled assets at Corporation. Salesman American Corp, owned by and operated by Bush Harriman Bank. Like, we can go on. You should read this. Salam bin Laden was Osama bin Laden's older brother. Did Osama bin Laden exist? Oh my gosh. But we were terrified of Osama bin Laden. He was the leader of Al-Qaeda that we invented. And not only that, while we were chasing him around the world to rid ourselves of this crazy ass terrorist, he happened to be in every nation that was on that list that was given to the general 10 days after 9/11. Why are we invading these countries? I don't know, but we're going to do this in under 5 years. And Osama bin Laden did it. Didn't he? He took them everywhere they needed to be. But, you know, not a plan at all. That's a conspiracy theory. You can only connect the dots backwards. Unfortunately, that's the way it is for mankind. Analytics. Predictive analytics. They can work forward too if you knew the algo. But let's take it another step. Here's something really weird. Do you guys remember when Peter Navarro was arrested and he sat in the same cell as John, what was it, Hinckley? Hinckley, right? Hinckley, the guy that went to like assassinate Reagan. Do you guys remember that? It was so weird. But here's a funny story. So Hinckley is the son of a big Texas oilman who was one of the biggest George Bush backers, you know, for the presidency, right? That he actually lost the first time. And not only that, John Hinckley's brother, Scott, actually had dinners with, you know, the son of Bush Sr. and George, and brother of George Washington. Do you guys know him? I mean, we always talk about Jeb, but what's the brother that we missed? Let me see if anybody knows that name. Does anybody know who the really bad Bush is and who they've tainted as the black sheep? It's almost like the Hunter Biden of the family. Do you guys know who that is? It wasn't Jeb Bush. Who is the black sheep of the family? Who is the one? His name is actually Neal. And you know what's so funny? The night before the assassination, they had dinner. So fucking weird. So weird. So weird. It is weird, isn't it? It is weird, right? The black sheep of the Bush family, right, has dinner with the guy that's going to assassinate, right? Right? Ronald Reagan, right? Right? So weird. Well, here's the weird thing. So weird. Who's the black sheep of the new Bush family? Right, that's right, Jenna. And Jenna actually had dinner with Prince Charles on the eve of the Queen's death. So freaking weird. And it's obviously just a coincidence. Okay. Stop the press. It's just a coincidence. I mean, such a coincidence that Jenna, the black sheep of the Bush family, the one that amounts to nothing and is nothing, and she's such a loser or whatever, right? She had dinner with the prince, right, on the eve of her death. And it's just a coincidence, of course, because, you know, why wouldn't she, who's a nobody, have dinner with the prince? And not only that, on the day the Queen is dead, we have John Kerry on all networks saying things like, he better be the king of climate change, and, you know, and the prime minister of England better be of climate change. And it's like, oh, please stop. Stop it. What are you talking about, Dory? Conspiracy? I don't know. I mean, when is coincidence enough? And see, here's the thing. How do you tell people this without sounding crazy? Well, you just wait for it. Nazis. And then, anybody want to take a wild guess who Bush had dinner with before JFK died? I'm just going to say it like that. Does anybody know who Bush had dinner with the night before JFK was assassinated? So let's just leave home. My gosh. And people would be very upset because she's iconic in the way she dresses. So I want people to understand that corrupt individuals are creatures of repetitive behavior and comfort, and they always do the same thing. And it's so bizarre how people just don't see it. And it's like so bizarre how it just keeps going forward and forward and forward. How these same players seem to be either having dinner and then people going missing, or being their friends and their PR people and tanking everything they do. It's almost like it's the same thing. So from the beginning of the show to the end, I mean, you've got two different strategies, but their goal is the same: destruction.